By morning, everyone in the building knew Clara Wren had spent the night in my apartment. What nobody knew was that I had slept on the floor with my back against the front door because Julian Hart had texted her at 2:06 a.m. "Don't make me come get you." That was the sentence that kept me awake. Not the party dress folded over my kitchen chair. Not the engagement ring sitting beside my blue mug. Not the way Clara had asked if I could stay where she could see me, then immediately apologized for needing anything at all. What Julian did not know was that Clara had not come to my apartment empty-handed. She had come with his old phone, the one he thought he had destroyed. My name is Evan Lowell. I was 35, divorced, and careful in the boring way men become careful after being blamed for things they tried to fix. I edited confession podcasts for a living. I cut out long breaths, softened ugly pauses, and made heartbreak easier to listen to. Then Clara knocked, and nothing about her pain could be cleaned up. She lived 2 doors down, apartment 5C, the one with the neat wreaths that changed by season, and the flat white boxes of paper samples stacked outside when her deadlines got bad. She designed wedding invitations. She made promises look beautiful for people who still believed beauty could protect a promise from cowardice. At midnight, she was still wearing the dress from her engagement party. Pale champagne fabric, damp hem, one pearl clip hanging loose near her ear. Her makeup had survived the night almost perfectly, which somehow made the damage underneath easier to see. When I opened the door, she did not cry. She said, "Please don't let me go back there tonight." I stepped aside before I knew what I was doing. For the next 6 hours, I became useful, because useful was the only language I trusted. I gave her water. I gave her the least chipped mug I owned. I gave her my old gray hoodie, and pretended not to notice how small her hands looked inside the sleeves. I unfolded the couch, then decided the couch was too close to the door, then slept on the floor instead because Julian's message had turned the hallway into something that needed guarding. Clara noticed all of it. That was dangerous. At 7:12, the first message came from her mother. "Please come home before this becomes permanent." Clara read it at my kitchen table, with both hands wrapped around the cracked blue mug I had given her months ago, back when she had been locked out in the rain with 2 boxes of invitation proofs balanced against her hip. Her party dress was folded over the chair behind her. Her makeup was gone. The ring was not. It sat between us like a dare. "I should go back," she said, but her voice did not believe her. I knew how bad this looked. A woman's engagement party falls apart. She runs to the quiet neighbor. She changes into his hoodie. Her fiancé arrives in the morning with a wounded expression and a story clean enough for other people to repeat. I could hear it before Julian even knocked. Clara was confused. Clara was emotional. Clara had been influenced. Clara had embarrassed both families. That was how men like Julian survived the damage they caused. They arrived calm, named the woman's pain as instability, then waited for everyone else to help carry the lie. The knock came at 7:18. 3 firm taps. Controlled. Polite. Certain. Clara's fingers tightened around the mug. "Do you want me to answer it?" I asked. She looked toward the door, then at the ring, then at the folded dress. "No," she said. "I need a second." Julian's voice followed through the door. "Clara, open up. Don't make me explain this to your mother in front of everyone. Not apologize. Not ask if she was safe. Explain." The word found a place in the room and stayed there. Clara stood slowly. My hoodie fell almost to her knees, and I thought of the night before, of her asking not to be sent back into a life that had already started closing around her. I wanted to tell her she did not have to face him. I wanted to tell her he had no right to stand outside my door and turn her fear into his inconvenience. Instead, I stayed quiet, because if I answered for her, I would only become another man deciding where her voice belonged. Clara reached into the front pocket of the hoodie. At first, I thought she was looking for a tissue. Then she pulled out a phone. Not hers. It was older, heavier, with a cracked black case, and a screen fractured across the corner like a spider web. She placed it on the table beside the ring and the blue mug. "The night before the party," she said, "Julian told me he dropped this in the trash by accident." I looked at the phone. "He lied?" She gave me a small, tired smile. "Julian doesn't lie like other people. He edits until the truth sounds unreasonable." The battery symbol blinked red. 1%. Then the screen lit up. Julian's name was still there. So was a message he had never meant Clara to read. Outside, he knocked again, harder this time. "Clara." Her shoulders lifted once, then settled. By then, she no longer looked broken. She looked ready, and I understood. standing in my small kitchen with a broken promise on the table, that Clara had not come to my apartment because she needed a man to save her. She had come because she needed one witness who would not help bury the truth. Julian knocked once more, then stopped. The quiet after it was worse than the sound. Clara stood beside my kitchen table with the old phone between us and his voice, waiting on the other side of my door. The battery icon blinked red. 1%. The message preview glowed just long enough for both of us to see the first few words. If she finds this, do not answer her. Then the screen went dark. Of course, Clara whispered. Even the phone wants better timing. My hand moved toward the charger plugged beside the toaster. Clara caught the movement. Evan. I stopped. You don't have to fix it yet. The sentence landed harder than it should have. For most of my adult life, fixing had been the only respectable way I knew to stay in a room. Tighten the loose hinge, carry the heavy box, edit the pause out of somebody's grief, give a woman the dry hoodie and the floor guarded by my body. Dana, my ex-wife, used to call it sweet. Then she left on a Sunday morning while I was under our kitchen sink, trying to repair a leak she no longer cared about. I don't know how to be honest with you, she said, because every time I'm unhappy, you try to solve it before I can say what it is. Then she told me I was safe, kind, reliable, and that safe was not the same as loved. After she left, people praised me in all the wrong ways. I became careful. I stopped reaching too quickly. I stopped stepping into other people's pain unless I could carry something useful enough to excuse my presence. Then Clara Wren showed up in a ruined engagement dress and told me not to send her back. Julian knocked again. Clara, he said, still calm, still close to the door. I know you're upset, but this is not helping you. There it was. Helping you. A polished phrase with ownership folded inside it. Clara touched the place where her ring had been, then seemed to remember it was on my table. You see how he does it? She asked quietly. Yes. No. She looked at me. I mean, do you see how easy it is to start answering him just to make the sentence stop? I did. The old apology rose in me, even though he had not accused me yet. The need to smooth the air. The sudden shame of being difficult, even when someone else had brought the knife. My hand went to the lock. Do you want me to tell him to leave? Clara shook her head. I want to tell him. She said it with fear, but not uncertainty. I stepped back. Something in her face changed when I did. Not relief exactly. Recognition. Last night, she had told me I was the only person in the building who had never looked at her like she was supposed to be a bride. Maybe while I was busy making myself harmless, she had noticed the effort. She walked to the door, then stopped. The old phone buzzed once on the table, revived by some last stubborn piece of battery. The screen lit again. A message thread sat open beneath Julian's name, and below it was a conversation with someone saved only as E. Clara stared. Every bit of color left her face. I did not move closer. What is it? I asked. Clara swallowed. Not yet. It was not a refusal. It was a hand pressed against a wound before removing the glass. Then Julian said through the door, lower now. If you make me stand out here, people are going to assume things. Clara laughed. This time, the laugh had no softness in it. They already are, she said. He heard her. I knew because the silence outside shifted. Open the door, Julian said. Clara turned the lock. For one sharp second, the part of me shaped by Dana tried to take over. I almost stepped into the hallway first, almost made myself the shield, almost gave Julian a cleaner target because it was easier than watching Clara stand in the line of fire. But Clara's hand touched my wrist. Not gripping. Not needing. Just stopping. Stay, she said. I'm right here. I know. Her eyes stayed on mine. That is why I'm asking. Then she opened the door. Julian Hart stood in the hallway, wearing the same navy suit from the party. His tie loosened just enough to suggest he had suffered tastefully. Behind him, Mrs. Bell from 5A had opened her door 2 inches, pretending not to listen with the intensity of a federal witness. Julian's eyes went to Clara first, then to my hoodie, then to me. His expression did not change much, but I had spent years editing voices for the moment people stopped sounding like themselves. His face had the visual version of that, a half-second cut in the room tone. Clara, he said, soft enough for witnesses. You scared everyone. She stood barefoot, sleeves pushed to her wrists, hair loose now from the pearl clips. The party dress was still behind her on my kitchen chair. Her ring was still on my table. But her voice was steady. No, she said. I embarrassed you. Mrs. Bell's door opened another inch. Julian blinked. I'm not doing this in a hallway. You did it in front of both families last night. His mouth tightened. That was different. Because you had the audience then? He looked at me again, this time with less polish. I appreciate you helping her, he said. But this is between my fiancée and me. Clara did not look back at me. She told you not to call her that, I said. The words came out before I planned them. Julian looked pleased for a second, as if I had finally stepped into the role he needed me to play. Interesting, he said. So now he speaks for you? There it was, the trap. Heat moved up my neck. An apology rose in me, fast and familiar. Clara turned her head just enough to see me. She did not rescue me. She trusted me to catch myself. I let the apology die. No, I said. You're right. I don't speak for her. Julian's eyes sharpened. But I heard her, I said. That is different. Since he arrived, Julian had no immediate answer. The old phone buzzed again behind us, weak and dying. Clara looked at him, then past him, to Mrs. Bell's narrow door, then back to the man who had asked for time after taking years of hers. Come back at noon, she said. I'll return the ring in daylight. His calm slipped. Clara, don't be dramatic. She smiled then, tired but clear. I'm done making your cruelty look calm. And I stood beside the door, not in front of Clara, not behind her, finally understanding the difference between being useful and being present. Julian did not leave right away. He stood in the hallway for another breath, his face arranged into patience, his eyes moving between Clara, me, and Mrs. Bell's half-open door across the hall. Noon, Clara said. Her voice held until the word was finished. Julian heard the crack after it. I saw the small satisfaction pass over his mouth before he hit it. Fine, he said. But think carefully about what this looks like. He turned toward the elevator. Mrs. Bell's door clicked shut before he passed it, not subtle enough to fool anyone. The elevator opened with a tired scrape. Julian stepped inside, still watching Clara until the metal closed between them. Only then did she shut my door. Her hand stayed on the knob. The old phone was still on the kitchen table. Black screen, cracked corner, 1% already spent. The ring sat beside it. The blue mug had gone cold. Clara crossed back to the table like her legs had been given instructions they did not trust. She sat down, stood again, then pressed both palms against the wood. I thought I would feel better after saying it. You said it anyway. That is not the same thing. No. I wanted to call her brave. I stopped myself. Brave was the word everyone had handed Julian last night, and it already had fingerprints on it. Instead, I unplugged my laptop charger and held up the cord. May I? Clara nodded. I did not touch the phone until she pushed it toward me. The plug fit badly. The cracked case pressed against the connector, so I angled the cord under a folded napkin to keep it charging. A thin white battery appeared, vanished, then returned, as if the phone itself was deciding whether the truth was worth the effort. Clara gave a dry little breath. He always hated broken things, she said. Old phones. Old chairs. Old problems. He said keeping them made people sentimental. Where did you find it? In his coat. Her thumb rubbed the empty place where the ring had been. Last night, after Elise arrived, he went into the garage to take a call. I followed him because I wanted one honest answer before everyone started smiling at me again. He had this phone in his hand. When he saw me, he turned it off too fast. The battery climbed to 2%. I asked why he was using a phone he told me he lost 6 months ago. What did he say? Work. She gave a small, bitter smile. Then he dropped it. Hard. He stepped on it once, like he wanted me to understand the conversation was over. But he didn't check if it still worked. No. Julian is careful with people, not objects. The phone vibrated against the table. The screen lit. No passcode. Just the last open thread. A contact marked E. Clara's fingers tightened around the table edge. I don't want you to read it for me, she said. I won't. But I need you to see it. I can do that. She picked up the phone. Her hand missed once, then found it. I kept mine flat on the table. Several messages were broken by the cracked corner, but enough remained. E. You can't marry her just because she makes your life look calm. Julian. Don't start. E. You invited me. What did you think would happen? Julian. I thought seeing you would make things clear. Clara stopped breathing for a second. The next message sat below it. Julian. If I pause tonight, it has to look thoughtful, not cruel. Clara read the line twice. Then a third time. He planned it, she said. No drama. No raised voice. Just a plain sentence that made the kitchen feel smaller. She scrolled. E. She doesn't deserve to be humiliated. Julian. Clara won't make a scene. E. You sound sure. Julian. She has spent 2 years proving it. The phone slipped in Clara's hand. I reached only far enough to stop it from hitting the floor, then let go. Clara stared at the screen. She has spent 2 years proving it, she repeated. Her voice sounded almost curious, like she was studying evidence from someone else's life. That is what he loved about me. No, I said before I could make it gentle. Her eyes moved to mine. That is what he used. The old phone dimmed. Clara's throat worked once. Keep going, she whispered. You don't have to do all of it now. If I stop, I'll start helping him explain it. That sentence knew exactly where to cut. She scrolled again. Julian. If she gets emotional, my mother will handle the room. E. And her mother? Julian. Margot cares more about appearances than Clara admits. Clara closed her eyes. That was the detail that hurt her most. Not Elise. Not even the planned hesitation. Her mother had been part of his math. I thought of the 712 message. Please come home before this becomes permanent. Not before you are safe. Not before you decide too fast. Before this becomes permanent. Clara placed the phone on the table. I told my mother about the lilies, she said. I waited. At the tasting. At the florist. Last month when my throat went raw because Julian's mother wanted white lilies everywhere. She touched her collarbone. My mother told me marriage was partly learning, which discomforts were worth mentioning. My hands tightened under the table. Clara noticed. You want to say something terrible? Yes. Don't. I wasn't going to say it well. A wounded smile touched her mouth, then disappeared when her own phone buzzed. Julian, I tried to be gentle this morning. Do not force me to explain why you were in his apartment. Another message arrived. Your mother is worried you are not thinking clearly. Clara did not move for several seconds. He is already doing it. Yes. I need copies, she said. Screenshots, photos, times, everything. I pushed my laptop aside to clear the table. There's a way to back it up, I said. But you should control what gets saved. She studied me. Last night, she had needed somewhere safe. Now, she was asking for something heavier. A witness. Comfort could be misunderstood. A witness had responsibility. Clara slid the old phone to the center of the table. Then witness it, she said. Don't fix it for me. Don't make it cleaner. Just help me make sure he can't make me sound crazy later. I nodded. She took photos, one message at a time. Her hands shook, but she did not stop. I wrote down times. I found a charging angle that held. I placed the ring in a small saucer so it would stop rolling whenever her elbow brushed the table. At 8:03, the old phone opened one more thread. Not Elise. Margot, Clara's mother. The last message from Julian had been sent at 11:48 p.m. before Clara ever knocked on my door. Julian, if she runs, let her. By morning, she'll need someone to blame, and it shouldn't be us. The message made Margot more than a weakness in Clara's life. It made her part of Julian's plan. Clara copied that one twice. Once for the lawyer. Once, I thought, for the daughter inside her who still wanted a mother before she wanted a witness. Clara stared at the screen. Outside my window, traffic moved through the wet street, like ordinary life had not just turned into evidence. Then Clara's own phone lit up again. Her mother. Julian is coming at noon with both families. We are going to settle this properly. At 11:46, Clara changed out of my hoodie and back into the engagement dress. Not because she wanted to, because Julian was coming with both families, and some old part of her still believed that if people were going to judge her, they should at least have to look at the woman they had embarrassed the night before. The dress had spent the morning folded over my kitchen chair. I had moved it once because the hem was too close to a coffee stain. Clara caught me and said, "You don't have to protect the dress." I was protecting my security deposit. That earned half a smile. When she came out of the bathroom, the champagne fabric looked different in daylight. Less like celebration, more like evidence. Her hair was down now, no pearl clips, no careful party shape. The ring was still in the small saucer on my table. The old phone sat beside my laptop, charging under the awkward angle of a folded napkin. Clara picked up the saucer. For a second, her thumb hovered over the ring. "I almost want to put it back on," she said. "Why?" "So they don't look at my hand first." I understood the instinct to manage the room before the room managed you, to make yourself easier to discuss. You don't owe them a softer picture, I said. No, she said, but I hate that I still want to give them one. At noon, the building buzzer sounded. Then my phone rang from the lobby panel. I pressed the button without speaking. The elevator took too long. Clara stood near my kitchen table with the saucer in one hand and her own phone in the other. We had saved the messages. Screenshots, photos, timestamps. A copy of the thread with Elise. A copy of the thread with Margot. Enough to keep her from being alone with his version. Before the buzzer, Clara had sent 2 messages without asking me to help. One went to Elise. If there was one thing from last night he thinks I didn't see, bring it now. The other went to Owen Price, the photographer whose card was still tucked inside the event folder. If your previews show the garden doorway before the toast, please come to apartment 5D. She did not explain herself. She did not beg. She simply gave the truth, a door to walk through. When the knock came, it was not Julian's 3 polite taps. It was a cluster of impatience. I opened the door. Julian stood in front. Behind him were Clara's mother, Margot, dressed like respectability was armor, and Julian's mother, Celeste Hart, wearing a cream coat and the expression of a woman who believed volume was vulgar, but pressure was not. Julian's father stood near the elevator, pretending not to be involved while hearing everything. Mrs. Bell's door across the hall opened immediately. That made 5 witnesses before anyone had said a word. Margot saw Clara first and pressed one hand to her chest. Oh, honey. The word sounded tender. The eyes went to the dress, then the empty finger, then me. Julian stepped forward half an inch. Can we come in? No, Clara said. Everyone paused. It was a small word. It still stopped the hallway. Julian recovered first. Clara, this is not a performance. You brought an audience to my neighbor's door. Margot's face pinched. We came because we are worried. You disappeared after a difficult evening and spent the night here. She tried not to look at me again and failed. People are already asking questions. What people? Family, Celeste said. Friends. The photographer's assistant knows someone from the club. These things move. Clara stared at her. The thing that moved, she said, was Julian's hand off my back when Elise arrived. Celeste's mouth hardened. Julian sighed in a way designed to make Clara sound unreasonable. This is exactly what I meant. You are taking one complicated moment and turning it into proof that everyone is against you. There it was. The first fold in the story. Clara's lips parted. For one frightening second, I saw her old reflex rise. The apology, the explanation, the instinct to say she knew how it looked, that everyone was upset, that she should have called. She almost gave them the softer picture. Then her eyes dropped to the saucer. The ring shifted against porcelain with a tiny bright scrape. Julian heard it too. Clara, he said, warmer now. No one is attacking you, but you have to admit this behavior is concerning. Concerning. That was the word. Not hurt, not angry, not humiliated. Concerning. Margot folded her arms, and the word settled on her face, as if Julian had handed her something useful. The old version of me would have stepped in. I would have said Clara was tired, overwhelmed, not doing anything wrong. I would have helped so quickly that Julian could point at me and say, see? My hand stayed on the doorframe. Clara had asked for a witness, not a spokesman. She looked at Julian. You planned last night. Celeste made a small sound. Julian's eyes moved quickly to Clara's phone. What are you talking about? The old phone. His calm did not break. Not fully, but something behind it checked a locked door. I don't know what you think you found, he said. You know exactly what I found. Margot turned to him. What phone? Julian did not answer her. He looked at me instead. And you are helping her go through my private property? Clara's head turned sharply. Do not do that. I'm asking a fair question. No. You're moving the target. Mrs. Bell's door opened another inch. Julian lowered his voice. Clara, you spent the night in another man's apartment, wearing his clothes. If I wanted to make this look bad, I would not have to work very hard. The hallway went still. That was the wound he chose to make public. Margot looked away. Celeste did not. Julian's father shifted by the elevator, uncomfortable but silent. Clara's face changed into recognition. She had known he might say it. Hearing it still cut. The saucer tipped slightly. The ring slid to one side. I moved before I could stop myself. One step. Clara's shoulder touched mine. just enough to stop me without looking away from him. I came here, she said, because you humiliated me in front of both families and then tried to make my reaction the problem. Julian smiled sadly. Listen to yourself. No, she said. You listen. Her voice cracked on the second word. Margot flinched. Celeste's expression cooled. Clara swallowed, and I could see how badly she wanted to disappear from her own sentence. But she stayed. You told Elise that if you paused last night, it had to look thoughtful, not cruel. Julian's eyes sharpened. You're taking messages out of context. I haven't shown the context yet. That landed. Margot looked at Clara now. Really looked. What messages? Clara lifted her phone. Julian's hand moved. Not toward her. Not enough to touch. But enough. Mrs. Bell said from across the hall. Young man, I would keep my hands where people can see them. No one expected it. Julian froze. The hallway no longer belonged to him. Clara took one breath, then another, but before she could open the screenshot, her mother stepped forward. Clara, stop. Please. Not here. Clara's face fell. Not because Margot had yelled. She had not. Because the plea was not for Clara's heart. It was for the hallway. Margot's eyes were wet now. Whatever happened, we can talk about it privately. Don't make this something people remember. The public wound opened exactly there. Clara lowered the phone. Julian saw it happen. His voice softened at once. That is all I've been trying to say. The lie sounded almost kind. Clara stared at her mother. The saucer trembled in her hand, ring ticking once against porcelain. Then she handed it to Margot. Hold this, Clara said, since everyone is so afraid of what it looks like. Margot took the saucer because she did not know how not to. Clara turned back into my apartment, picked up the old phone from the kitchen table, and returned to the doorway with the cracked screen glowing in her palm. Noon was your audience, she said to Julian. This is mine. Then she turned the screen toward her mother first. Julian, if she runs, let her. By morning, she'll need someone to blame, and it shouldn't be us. Margot read the line in silence. The saucer in her hands tilted, and the ring struck the rim with one clean sound. For the first time that morning, her face lost its talent for managing a room. As if the hallway had been waiting for that sentence, the elevator opened again. Elise Marlowe stepped out first, phone in hand, her face pale with the kind of guilt that had finally stopped negotiating with itself. Owen Price, the photographer from last night, followed with a camera bag over one shoulder and a small envelope in his hand. Clara had called neither of them to rescue her. Before noon, she had sent each of them one clear message. If you have proof of what happened before the toast, bring it now. They had come because Julian had left more witnesses behind than he remembered. Elise stopped first. Her eyes moved from Julian to Clara, then to the old phone in Clara's hand. Julian said, "This is not a good time." Elise gave him a tired smile. "You keep saying that right before you make it worse." Owen cleared his throat and held up a small envelope. "I was told to drop these with Mrs. Hart." Celeste reached for it, but Elise took the envelope first. "Don't," Julian said. The word came too fast. That was the crack. Small, but sharp enough for everyone to hear. Elise looked at Julian. "Why not?" He smoothed his face immediately. "Because this is private." Clara laughed once without humor. "Private became impossible when you brought both families to my neighbor's door." Owen shifted his camera bag. "I'm sorry. I should say something." He looked at Clara. "I photographed the party until Mr. Hart asked me to stop." Julian's jaw tightened. "When?" Clara asked. "After Miss Marlowe arrived. Before the toast." Julian stepped toward him. "That's enough." Elise opened the envelope. Inside were preview prints. Candlelight, champagne, white lilies, two families arranged into elegant lies. Then Elise held up one photo. Julian in the garden doorway, his hand wrapped around the old phone. Clara in the background, blurred but visible, watching him. Margot whispered, "Julian." Julian did not answer her. He looked at Clara, and the calm finally thinned. "You are making a mistake." "No," Clara said. "I made those quietly for 2 years." She did not show every message then. She did something smarter. She asked Owen to email the original photo to Denise Carver before he left the building. Owen nodded. Elise gave Clara her number. Margot kept holding the saucer with the ring, as if it had become too heavy to return. After that, the hallway broke apart without resolving anything. When the door closed again, my apartment felt smaller than before. Clara stood in the kitchen with the old phone in one hand and the photograph in the other. The dress was still on her body. The hem had wrinkled. A faint red flush had climbed up her throat where the lilies had irritated her the night before. "You need water," I said. She gave me a look. "I know. I'm doing it again." "Yes, but your throat is red." That was permission enough. I set a glass near her, not in her hand. Clara placed the photo beside the ring saucer. "I should feel vindicated." "You don't. I feel exposed." "You were exposed last night," I said. "This morning you were witnessed." She looked at me. "Don't say things like that unless you mean them." "I do. That's the problem." Then she saw me turn toward the sink, toward something useful and safe. "You keep doing that," she said. "The second something is honest, you make yourself useful or invisible." "I'm trying not to become another problem." "No. You're trying not to become a person with wants." That found the old wound too cleanly. "I heard him through the wall sometimes," I said. Clara went still. "Julien?" "Yes. Not words every time. Tone. Enough. Once he told you that you made simple things heavy. Another time he said your standards were exhausting." Her face changed, not with surprise, with recognition. I told myself it was none of my business. That was partly true. The other part was that I liked being the safe neighbor. It let me stay close to you without risking anything honest. Clara did not soften for me. I was engaged. "I know. So were you hoping I'd leave him?" "Sometimes," I said. And then I hated myself for it, so I acted like kindness was all I felt because kindness sounded clean. For a while she said nothing. Then she said, "Thank you for not making it prettier." Her eyes were wet again, but steady. "I don't know what to do with this," she said. "With him, with my mother, with you. You don't have to do anything with me." "That sounds noble." "It's a boundary. It can be both." She stepped close enough that I could smell rain still caught in the dress fabric. "I thought of your door before I thought of going home," she said. My breath shortened. "Clara, I know." "No. Listen to me. Not today. Not while you are still wearing the dress he humiliated you in. Not while your mother is calling and Julian is building a story. I want to kiss you," I said, because honesty deserved a full name. Her eyes closed for half a second. "I know. And I will not let the first honest thing between us start where he can use it as proof against you." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away herself. "Ask me tomorrow," she whispered. I shook my head. "Ask me when you are not running from a room he set on fire." That hurt her. It hurt me too. But she nodded. Clara took the engagement ring from the saucer, placed it inside a plain white envelope from her invitation samples, and wrote Julian across the front in clean black ink. Her hand shook only once. The old phone lit again. A new message from Julian. "If you show anyone that phone, I will tell them exactly what you were doing in Evan Lowell's apartment all night." Clara read it, then slid the phone toward me because witnesses do not look away. "Funny," she said. "He still thinks the worst thing he can do to me is make people talk." Her voice was steady, but her fingers were not. "What do you want to do first?" I asked. "Return the ring. Change my locks. Cancel the venue. Call the florist. Call the printer. Call my mother, and not apologize. Possibly throw up." Then Clara opened her laptop. Her wedding spreadsheet filled the screen. Venue deposit. Floral balance. Catering payment. Custom paper order. Photographer retainer. Every number was a receipt for trust. The venue cancellation fee alone was $8,400. The printer order sat under her business account. Not personal, business. "If this goes wrong, clients could hear about it," I said. "They already will. Wedding people love romance until it becomes inconvenient." Her phone buzzed again. "Margot, please don't make legal decisions while emotional." "That word again," Clara said. "Emotional? It means they want me quiet with prettier grammar." She typed a reply, erased it, and set the phone down. "What did you write?" "Nothing." "Why?" "Because I was about to make her feel better." She pushed back from the table. "I can't do this from your apartment." The words hit, but I kept my hands on the chair and told the truth instead of dressing it as patience. "I don't want you to leave. I know. But I should. Because Julian will use it. Because I might use it." The sentence changed the room. "You are the first place I thought of when everything fell apart," she said. "I don't regret that. But if I keep choosing your door before I choose myself, then I'm just trading one kind of disappearance for another. I don't want to be your hiding place." "No," she said. "You feel like the opposite. That's why I have to be careful." The boundary was cleaner than a kiss would have been. It hurt more too. The next 90 minutes became a list of cancellations. Venue, florist, printer, photographer, paper supplier. Clara wrote every number down as if naming the cost could keep it from becoming shame. The printer call hurt the most. The woman on the other end said, "But Clara, these were beautiful." And Clara had to close her eyes before answering. "They still are," she said. "They just belong to the wrong promise." When she ended the call, I wanted to reach for her hand. I did not. Instead, I slid the blue mug closer and poured more water into it, because coffee would have been a crime. At 2:30, Mrs. Bell knocked. She came in without waiting for me to fully open the door, carrying a gray metal document box and wearing house slippers with little embroidered lemons on them. "Phone," she said. Clara handed over the old one. "Copies?" "On my laptop and my phone." "Good. Ring?" Clara picked up the envelope. Mrs. Bell held out a second envelope, larger and padded. "Put it in here. Men with expensive mothers enjoy saying things were damaged." Clara obeyed. Mrs. Bell looked at me. "You. Don't be noble in a way that becomes stupid." "I'll do my best." "I doubt that. Try anyway." Then she turned to Clara and softened only slightly. "You're sleeping in my guest room." I changed the sheets. "There is a lock on the door, and my nephew is a locksmith if your fiancé has keys." "Ex-fiancé," Clara said. The correction came out quiet. Mrs. Bell nodded once, satisfied. At 3:10, Clara walked back to her apartment with Mrs. Bell on one side and me on the other, not because she needed an escort, because the building had eyes, and sometimes dignity needed witnesses as much as evidence did. Her door still had the tiny spring wreath on it. A white box of invitation samples sat outside, delivered that morning. Clara stared at it. Then she picked it up and carried it inside. The apartment smelled faintly of paper, rain, and lilies. Favor tags, seating cards, and a framed invitation sample waited everywhere. Small, unfinished pieces of a wedding that had assumed her cooperation. Clara walked to the kitchen drawer, took out Julian's spare key, and held it up. "I almost mailed this back," she said. Mrs. Bell snorted. "You almost made a bad decision." Clara placed the key on the counter. "I want the locks changed today." "Good," Mrs. Bell said. "That's a sentence worth hearing." While Mrs. Bell called her nephew, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Denise Carver. Her voice was formal and cold. "Given the mention of private electronic property, reputational threats, and possible coercion, please do not surrender the device or delete any messages. Call me immediately." Clara's face changed. Not relief, reality. Then her laptop chimed from the counter. A new email. Subject: formal notice regarding stolen property and defamatory conduct. From Julian's attorney. Clara read the first line. "Dear Miss Wren, your unstable behavior over the past 24 hours has created serious concern." The words sat there. Unstable. Julian had found his next story. By 4 o'clock, Julian's version had learned how to travel without him. It arrived as an attorney email, then as a screenshot in Clara's family group chat, then as a message from Sophie, a bride whose invitations Clara had been designing for 6 weeks. "Hi Clara, I'm so sorry, but with everything going on, we think it might be best to pause our order until things are clearer." Clara read it while the locksmith changed her deadbolt. I stayed in the hall because Julian had already made my apartment part of his story. He did not get hers too. She typed a reply to Sophie, erased it, and set the phone down. "What did you almost send?" I asked. "An apology." "For what?" "For making my life visible, while her wedding is still pretty." Then Margot texted, "Please stop provoking him. Julian says his attorney is willing to resolve this quietly if you return the phone and admit there was a misunderstanding." The deadbolt clicked into place. The sound should have helped. It did not. Mrs. Bell took off her reading glasses. "That is not a mother. That is a public relations department with grandchildren." Clara laughed once, then covered her mouth like the laugh had escaped without permission. Denise Carver called before Clara could open the next email. "Do not respond," the lawyer said. "Do not return the device. Do not summarize what is on it. Do not apologize in writing. Do not use the word misunderstanding." "He's telling clients I'm unstable," Clara said. "I saw the language," Carver said. "That word was chosen. It is reputational, not emotional." Then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You don't know what she told you. Clara does this when she panics. Be careful what she turns you into." No name. It did not need one. Clara read it. and her shoulders dropped in a way I had not seen yet. Not defeat, recognition too deep to fight immediately. "He's not even trying to convince me anymore," she said. "He's trying to make everyone around me tired." That was the second crisis. Not the attorney. Not the client. Not even the accusation. It was the spread. The truth no longer had one opponent. It had weather. Carver heard enough through the speaker. "Mr. Lowell, do not respond either." "I wasn't going to." Mrs. Bell made a noise. "I was thinking about it," I admitted. "Then continue not doing that," Carver said. Then Margot called. Clara answered, "Mama." I heard Margot's voice in broken pieces. Worried, embarrassing, legal. "Think of your business. Think of your future. Think of how this looks." Clara stood with the phone against her ear, and her back straight as a ruler. "I am thinking of my future," she said. A pause. "No, I am not saying Evan did anything." Another pause. Her face changed. "What did Julian tell you?" Mrs. Bell stepped closer. "No," Clara said. "I did not sleep with him." The hallway went cold inside my chest. Mrs. Bell turned toward me, not with suspicion, but warning. "Stay still." So I stayed. Clara listened for another few seconds, then said very softly, "I hate that you asked me before you asked what he did." She ended the call. For a moment, she looked at the apartment full of invitation samples and saw the easiest exit. "I can make this stop," she said. "How?" Mrs. Bell asked. "Return the phone. Say I overreacted. Tell Sophie the wedding is postponed, not canceled. Tell my mother she was right and I was embarrassed." Her voice grew calmer with each sentence. That frightened me more than tears. "I know how to do it," she said. "I've done it for 2 years." I stepped forward, then stopped at the threshold, not crossing. "Clara," I said, "if you choose quiet, choose it because you want peace. Not because they trained you to call it peace when it costs you your name." The document box vibrated in Mrs. Bell's hands. Once, twice. "The old phone," Mrs. Bell said. Clara opened the lid. The cracked screen had lit inside the metal box. A new message had arrived from Julian. For a moment, none of us understood how. Carver later guessed the old number was still linked to a message account Julian had forgotten to disconnect. Then Carver's voice came through the speaker. "Do not touch anything. Read it aloud." Clara leaned over the box. "Julian, she is close. Margot is working on her. If Evan reacts, use that. If she cries, say unstable. If she stays calm, say calculated." Mrs. Bell whispered a word I had never heard her use. Carver said, "Screenshot it with another device. Now." Clara did. The phone buzzed again. "Julian, find out whether Owen sent the photo. That idiot may have kept the one from the garage." Julian had sent it to the wrong phone. The one he thought was destroyed. The one sitting open in a fireproof box with a lawyer on speaker and 3 witnesses around it. Clara took one step back. "Not broken. Something harder." "You were right," she said to me without looking away from the screen. "About what?" "He edits until the truth sounds unreasonable." She picked up her own phone and called Sophie. When Sophie answered, Clara did not apologize. She said, "I understand if you need another designer, but I won't call myself unstable to make a man's lie more comfortable for your wedding." Then she ended the call before fear could talk her backward. The old phone buzzed one final time. "Julian, delete these after reading." Mrs. Bell smiled slowly. "Oh, sweetheart," she said. Too late. Denise Carver did not let Clara meet Julian in a hallway. "Hallways are where people perform," she said over the phone the next morning. "We are not giving him another stage he can pretend he did not build." So the meeting happened in the community room on the first floor of our building. A narrow space with 2 vending machines, a round table, and a bulletin board full of lost cat flyers and yoga class notices. It was ugly enough to be honest. Clara arrived with Mrs. Bell. I arrived separately. That was Clara's choice. Not because she was ashamed of me, because she wanted no one in that room to confuse my presence with her reason. Julian came with his attorney, a thin man named Mr. Vale, who carried a leather folder and the expression of someone billing in 6-minute increments. Margot came too. Celeste and Julian's father sat near the back wall. Elise stood by the vending machine with Owen Price beside her, his camera bag at his feet, no camera in his hands. No one looked comfortable. Good. Clara wore jeans, a black sweater, and no ring. She carried a folder of printed screenshots and the padded envelope with Julian's name on it. The old phone was not there. Denise Carver had it in her office by then. copied, logged, and protected in language Julian could not step on. Mr. Vale began first. My client is prepared to resolve this privately, he said. Provided Miss Wren returns his property, ceases defamatory insinuations, and acknowledges that the emotional events of the last 48 hours may have caused certain misunderstandings. Clara sat very still. Julian watched her with careful softness. There was the trap again, the quiet invitation to accept a smaller version of herself so everyone could leave. Margot leaned toward her. Honey, that sounds reasonable. Clara's hand tightened around the folder. I felt my body prepare to move before I gave it permission. Then Mrs. Bell's cane tapped the floor once. I stayed in my chair. Clara opened the folder. I am not here to resolve my pain privately, so Julian can keep damaging me publicly, she said. Mr. Vale lifted a hand. Miss Wren. No, Clara said. You can bill him for listening. Owen made a small coughing sound into his fist. It might have been a laugh. Julian's jaw moved once. Clara placed the first page on the table. This is the message Julian sent Elise before the engagement party. He wrote, If I pause tonight, it has to look thoughtful, not cruel. Celeste shifted in her chair. Julian sighed. It was a private conversation taken out of context. Clara placed the second page down. This is the next message. Clara won't make a scene. She has spent 2 years proving it. Then Clara placed a third page in front of Margot. Not Elise's thread. Hers. Julian. If she runs, let her. By morning, she'll need someone to blame, and it shouldn't be us. Margot read it once, then again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into a better mother if she looked long enough. They did not. Margot covered her mouth. Julian leaned forward. You do not understand the pressure I was under. Clara nodded once. I understand pressure. I designed 5 versions of our invitation because your mother thought the ampersand looked too modern. I sat under lilies I was allergic to because everyone preferred the pictures. I smiled, while you let me find out in a room full of people that you had invited the woman you still needed clarity from. Elise looked down. Julian turned toward her. Elise, don't let her use you like this. Elise lifted her eyes. You used me before she did. His face changed. Not anger yet. Something worse for him. Fear with manners. Mr. Vale slid a paper forward. The device, however, remains a legal issue. Denise Carver, who had joined by speakerphone from Clara's laptop, spoke for the first time. The device is in my possession. Your client's messages were preserved after he issued written reputational threats. If you want to argue property, we can do that formally. Julian looked at the laptop. Then, he made his mistake. Who else saw the backup? Nobody moved. The question sat in the room like a dropped glass. Clara's mouth parted slightly. Denise Carver said, Interesting. I did not mention a backup. Julian's attorney closed his eyes for 1 second. That was the crack widening. Julian recovered fast, but not cleanly. I assume she copied things. She has been acting calculated. There it was. Calculated. The replacement for unstable. Clara stood. Not quickly. Not dramatically. She simply rose, and everyone else had to adjust to the fact that she was no longer sitting under their judgment. For 2 years, she said, I thought being easy to reassure made me loving. I thought not making a scene made me mature. I thought if I could keep every table beautiful enough, nobody would notice I was slowly disappearing from my own life. Her voice shook on the last word, but she did not apologize for it. She turned to Margot. When I told you about the lilies, I needed my mother. You gave me etiquette. Margot's eyes filled. Clara. Not now, Clara said. Please hear me before you need me to forgive you. Margot went quiet. Clara faced Julian again. You asked for time in front of both families because you knew I would protect the room. Then when I left the room, you called me emotional. When I gathered proof, you called me unstable. When I stayed calm, you called me calculated. She placed her palm flat on the table. You don't get to call me unstable for refusing to stay edited. No one spoke. Even the vending machine seemed to stop humming. Julian's face flushed. You spent the night with him, he said, pointing at me at last. Everyone here is pretending that does not matter. The old version of me almost defended myself, almost explained the floor by the door, the texts, the couch, the space between us, the boundary neither of us had crossed. But Clara did not look at me. She did not need to. I went to Evan's apartment because he was the nearest person who did not ask me to protect your image, she said. He did not end our engagement. You did. In the garden, before the toast, with a phone in your hand and a plan in your messages. Julian's mouth twisted. You think he wants you cleanly? Men don't stand outside burning houses unless they hope someone falls into their arms. The sentence hit its mark because Julian was not entirely wrong about danger. Want was in the room, so was restraint. So was the difference between them. Clara absorbed it. Then she said, maybe. But Evan told me no when it would have been easier to be wanted. You told me, wait, when you meant stay useful. That was the sentence Julian could not polish. Elise stepped forward and placed Owen's printed photo on the table. Julian in the garden doorway, the old phone in his hand. Clara blurred in the background, already watching the truth form without her permission. Owen added, the timestamp is embedded in the file. I already sent the original to Miss Carver. Mr. Vale whispered something to Julian. Julian did not listen. He stared at Clara with the first honest expression I had ever seen on him. You are really going to ruin me over one bad night? Clara's face softened, and that made the answer hurt more. No, she said. I am going to stop ruining myself to make your bad nights survivable. Margot began crying quietly. Celeste stood. This has gone far enough. Mrs. Bell rose too, slower but somehow larger. Finally, she said. A true statement. Julian picked up the padded envelope with the ring inside. His hand shook once before he hid it. Clara saw. So did everyone else. I will send any future communication through my attorney, Clara said. Do not come to my apartment. Do not contact my clients. Do not use my mother to reach me. And do not call me unstable again. Julian opened his mouth. Clara lifted the final page. A printout of his wrong phone message. If she cries, say unstable. If she stays calm, say calculated. His mouth closed. The story fight ended there. Not because everyone suddenly loved the truth. Because for once, the lie had run out of places to stand. The meeting did not fix Clara's life. Truth only made the shape of the damage harder to deny. Julian stopped coming to the building. His attorney sent 2 more letters, each less confident than the one before. Denise Carver answered both with copies, timestamps, and sentences that made threats look expensive. Margot took longer. Clara did not forgive her mother in one emotional scene. For a while, they spoke only through short messages about practical things. Insurance, storage, the venue balance, the printer refund that never came. When Margot finally wrote, I should have asked what he did before I asked what it looked like. Clara read it 3 times before answering. One afternoon, I passed Clara in the hallway while she was carrying 3 boxes of wedding samples to the recycling room. Cream paper, charcoal ink, pressed flowers, beautiful little ruins. I reached for one box. She held it tighter. I need to carry these myself, she said. So I stepped back. That was harder than helping. By then, she had moved from Mrs. Bell's guest room back into her own apartment. The locks had been changed. Julian's spare key was sealed for her attorney. The old phone stayed in Denise Carver's office because Clara refused to build her future around a cracked screen. Still, some objects stayed. The blue mug stayed on my kitchen shelf. The padded envelope that had held Julian's ring stayed in Clara's desk drawer. One proof of the wedding invitation stayed too, not framed, not displayed, folded once and tucked inside a box marked paper mistakes. 3 weeks after the meeting, Clara knocked on my door at 9:40 p.m. Not desperate, not shaking, 2 firm taps. Not shaking, 2 firm taps. When I opened it, she stood there in jeans, a brown sweater, and no borrowed clothes. Her hair was loose. Her face was tired, but not arranged for anyone else. She held a bag of coffee beans. For your machine, she said. It sounds like it is trying to confess to a crime through the wall. It has been through a lot. It has been through electricity. I smiled before I could stop myself. She stepped in only after I moved aside. That mattered. She noticed that I noticed. The kitchen was cleaner than usual because I had been pretending not to hope she would come. The blue mug sat on the counter, empty. Clara touched the crack near the handle with one finger. I used to think this mug was ugly, she said. It is ugly. No, it is honest. There's a difference. I filled the machine with her coffee beans, and it made a grinding sound so violent that Clara laughed. Not the broken laugh from the hallway, not the sharp one she used against Julian. A real one. Startled out of her before she could make it elegant. The sound did something to me. I wanted to step closer. I did not. Clara saw the restraint and shook her head gently. Evan, I'm trying to be careful. I know. I don't want to become the man who waited by the exit and called it love. She leaned against the table, hands behind her on the edge. And I don't want to become the woman who runs from one story into another because the second one hurts less. There it was, the truth neither of us could decorate. So we stood in my small kitchen with the terrible coffee machine between us, saying nothing for a moment, because both of us had finally learned that silence did not always mean disappearance. Sometimes it meant giving the truth enough space to breathe. Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a folded card. Cream paper, charcoal ink, a pressed fern in the corner. My chest tightened before I understood why. "It's not the invitation," she said quickly. She handed it to me. On the front, in her clean designer lettering, she had written, "No one gets to edit you out of your own life." I read it twice. The second time hurt more. "I made it from the back of one of the old proofs," she said. I thought I needed to throw every piece away. Then I realized I wanted one thing to survive with a different meaning. I set the card beside the blue mug. The old promise had not vanished. It had been turned over. Clara watched my hand leave the card. "I'm still angry," she said. "You should be. I still hear his voice when I make a choice too slowly. I still hear Dana saying safe is not the same as loved." Her eyes softened. "You are not just safe." It did not heal me, but it reached something. Maybe that was better. Clara stepped closer, then stopped. "Ask me now," she said. My throat tightened. "Are you sure?" "No." She smiled a little. "But I'm clear." So I asked. Not for forever, not for proof, not for a promise big enough to scare both of us back into old habits. "Will you have dinner with me tomorrow?" Clara's eyes filled, but she did not cry. "Yes," she said. "Tomorrow." We did not kiss that night. She took coffee in the ugly blue mug while rain moved down the window. We talked about nothing important for almost an hour. A broken lamp, a client who wanted gold ink on black paper, Mrs. Bell's war against the laundry room dryer. When Clara left, she did not run. When I closed the door, I did not sleep against it. Months later, the card still sat beside the mug. Some mornings, Clara would touch the cracked handle before pouring coffee. Some nights, I still caught myself becoming useful when honest would be better. She still stiffened when a room went too quiet after someone said her name. I still feared that wanting made me less decent. We did not cure each other. We learned where the bruises were. And on the days when the old story tried to rise again, Clara would point to the card and say, "No editing." I would answer, "No disappearing." That became our promise before anything else did. Some people do not hurt you by leaving. They hurt you by asking you to stay inside a version of yourself that keeps them comfortable. And sometimes love does not arrive as rescue. Sometimes it arrives as a witness, a person who stands close enough to hear the truth, but far enough back to let you say it yourself. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments, have you ever had to fight for the right to tell the truth of your own life? And if you want more stories like this, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.